been a lot of discussion about leadership and what makes an effective male leader and what makes an effective female leader and how we spin adjectives. You're assertive on one hand, you're aggressive on the other. One has a positive connotation, one has a negative connotation. I think these conversations are going to continue to go on. People are unique. We make bold statements about how different genders behave in the workplace, and I think some of those stereotypes are true. My feeling is to advance, for women to advance. There are now so many different programs that support leadership and teaching and all those things, but at the end of the day, for women to advance and an individual woman to advance, in my mind, she has to understand what it requires to be successful in the environment that she's in. And I don't mean that means you should put up with having inappropriate things said to you, but you have to figure out how to use your skills in the culture that you're in. I didn't make up this expression, but you can't fight City Hall. You can't change an entire organization unless you started it. And many women don't have the opportunity to do that. So I think you can never lose your cool. And I think that you really have to make sure that your performance and your relationship building is going to get you where you need to go. I think we women are trained that, I think historically, at least when I started my career, we were trained to be the best at what you do and you'll get noticed. Women can't go into organizations like that and put their head down and say, if I do the work, I'll be rewarded. So much of what goes on, so much of what makes people successful is this building of relationships, is the camaraderie. And I don't just mean the stereotypical on the golf course. I mean being engaged in discussions, whether they're casual or planned, where decisions are being made. And I don't think it's a negative to be aggressive, because I think when people say that, I chuckle to myself and say that would be a positive. If I were a man, I'd be assertive. So I'm going to still be assertive, and they could call my behavior whatever they want. But have to keep a laser-like focus on what the objective is. And you have to figure out how to be successful in whatever environment you're in. You know, in consulting, we use the expression all the time, know your audience. Who are you speaking to? Who are you speaking to internally? Who are you speaking to externally? And figure out how to get your message across. The other thing I think is critical for women in general is not just networking, but networking that actually builds relationships and builds businesses. So when I started working in a female sexual health business, all of a sudden I became aware of all these organizations and all these businesses and built relationships in a much more focused way than I had earlier in my career. When I go into a networking event, my objective is to leave having learned one important fact that's going to stay with me and having one person that I want to follow up with. This idea that relationships just happen or networking just happens, I think is a fallacy. It requires a significant amount of work. It requires a significant amount of time. And sometimes I think it requires more for women than for men. And there are lots of issues. Right now, the Girl Scouts and Lean In are focused on eliminating bossy from the vocabulary of the universe. I think it's a great objective. That's not something that I would spend time on, because I don't think I can change how an individual is going to interact with me. All I could do is change how I'm going to interact with them. So I think it's wonderful that there are all these supportive interactions. And I remember my son happened to see that. He says, why would someone spend time eliminating a word? You know, clearly not understanding what that means and what the implications are for how people treat women when they call them bossy. I would say the best advice is to have a thick skin. People are going to say things that are offensive. People are going to say things that you would never dream of saying, men and women. And I think you really have to stay true. It sounds like a cliche, but you can't ever be in a situation where you're acting in a way